Hello everyone, and we're back again, and it is the second section of today's event, and we're going to start off with Tina Thatter from Unilever, who's going to be talking about how to overcome challenges and adversity. So over to you, Tina.
Hi guys, I'm Tina, Business Administration Apprentice at Unilever, and I work as a business analyst. So in terms of why I chose to do an apprenticeship, I decided to do an apprenticeship because I thought that university wasn't right for me and I preferred hand-on learning. And I wasn't sure that going to university was the path for me because I thought the opportunity of being an apprentice at Unilever for me was personally more suitable. And I came across my training provider, which is Multiverse, through the internet when I was looking at apprenticeships, and it was just really interesting to see Multiverse, which is formerly White Hat, offering these interesting apprenticeships for everyone. And then as a result of my apprenticeship, I think I've just gained so many skills and skills such as confidence and time management, which has also allowed me to expand my network and of apprentices as well as experienced individuals. So in terms of when I've had to sort of deal with a few challenges, I think during the beginning of my apprenticeship, I thought that there were a few challenges such as anticipating to work in a Unilever office and also meeting the team, as well as transitioning from going from A levels, which is all about studying, to going to the world of business. And that's difficult enough, but then you have to manage doing all of that remotely. So my journey starting at Unilever was definitely an overall learning experience. And I think I've only overcome it through resilience and self-motivation. And it was important that I had that self-motivation because without it, I wouldn't be able to perform to a good standard at work and as well as my coursework. And I just feel like as well as that, you can't actually get the same experience of getting to know everyone remotely as you would get in the office. So definitely being proactive and building those networks and talking to people was really important for me. And I also want to kind of talk about how people from adverse backgrounds can break out into their career and succeed in an apprenticeship, because those with adverse backgrounds can potentially you can take advantage of what apprenticeships are, and you can take advantage of what they have to offer because they're allowing you to kickstart your career after the school leaving age, which is 16, I think. And then you can do this by finding out what you're interested in or passionate about, and search for an apprenticeship that may relate to this or it's similar to your current skill set. So if not now, you can always do it in a couple of years or after university if you choose to do that. And you can be successful in your apprenticeship by networking and completing assignments to a good standard and performing well in your day-to-day work. I would also recommend taking advantage of all the opportunities that come your way, because you won't always get them, and especially during the start of your apprenticeship, you'll have more time as well to do them. And in terms of people who are feeling down and low in their apprenticeship or generally throughout work, I would say that it's important to seek help from your line manager or your coach, from your training provider, or just generally someone you trust, because your emotions can generally affect your performance at work and your coursework that you provide. And talking to someone that you trust, like your line manager, they'll probably be able to give you some advice on how to tackle your problems and what's concerning you. And it's so important to be transparent with them, so that without that, you're not going to know because without telling them, they're not going to know what you're going through, and your situation might worsen.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tina. So just to go into a bit more detail about adversity, what as an apprentice, have you ever been in an adverse situation?
As an apprentice, in terms of an adverse situation, I would say beginning my apprenticeship, that's where the time came where people there's a stereotype going right around that. Well, actually, before my apprenticeship, there's a stereotype thinking that the apprentices are there to make tea or coffee and also just to take down notes. And I think that's something we need to challenge. And by going above and beyond your apprenticeship, you can kind of prove to people that you're more capable of doing things and taking on more responsibilities.
So have you ever been during your apprenticeship journey, being in a situation where you've been really stuck? So, maybe falling behind with your work, maybe issues at home, mental health issues, anything, have you been through that, and how have you dealt with that?
So I remember my time I remember there was a time in my apprenticeship where I was taking on so many opportunities that were coming my way, and I was taking on too many tasks, and that just made it difficult for me to manage my time. And I dealt with this by speaking to my line manager, and then she decreased my workload, which gave me more space to breathe. And without that transparency, I may to this point maybe be dealing with that same excessive workload.
Okay. And in terms of, supporting other apprentices and that community feel, what's it like within your employer and other employers that you know about? What sort of support network exists, and how have you sort of used that to help you during your journey?
In terms of the support network, you have the people that you work with in your team, but you also have, like my training provider, Multiverse, you have your coach. And so that kind of allows you to talk to someone outside your workplace who is your coach and like knows you very well through your coursework and your monthly sessions that you may have, to talk about your problems and just talk about what's bothering you maybe.
Brilliant, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and really appreciate you taking the time to share your apprenticeship journey and sort of the things that have helped you. If I was to sort of say, what's the one thing that you would say has helped you during your apprenticeship journey the most?
One thing that sort of helped me throughout my apprenticeship journey would definitely be my self-motivation and the people around me. So those kind of things are hand in hand, sort of able to allow you to progress further in your apprenticeship. And without that self-motivation, you're not going to be able to progress further in your individual work.
So what would you say your go-to pick-me-up is when you're feeling down?
Go-to pick-me-up when I'm feeling down would be probably contacting my line manager and just saying, oh, like completely being transparent with them and just saying, I'm not feeling that great today. I feel like there's too much work on me, or I'm feeling stressed, or this is happening at home, something like that. Talking to her about that will just make her aware of what's happening, and therefore you'll kind of have a honest and more trustful relationship with them too.
Brilliant, fantastic. We're now going to head over to your colleague, Joe. Thank you for joining us today, Joe. You're on mute.
Typical.
So Joe, just, introduce yourself. Tell us about, what you do, how you found out about your apprenticeship, and then we'll move on to how you can make the most of your apprenticeship.
Yeah, so similarly to Tina, I am a level 3 business admin apprentice with Unilever. So I work within the marketing function, but more sort of data-driven marketing rather than the sort of typical perception of sort of a creative marketing. So just a bit of background about me, I suppose, before I got onto my apprenticeship. So I went through the sort of very usual school route, did A levels, very much felt like university wasn't going to be for me. It didn't really feel like a right fit or something that was going to be particularly achievable for me, because I didn't find that sort of compatibility between me and academic work. Like I enjoyed it and I enjoyed taking out the bits of it that I enjoyed learning about, but I didn't fully engage with it in the way that some people did. And so, in all honesty, apprenticeships weren't really talked about where I went to school. It was kind of like you either go to uni or you fester and just don't really do anything. They didn't really pose any alternatives. So I kind of had to go out and find them on my own. And I actually kind of stumbled across apprenticeships from looking at UCAS and kind of panicking and going, oh, well, am I going to have to go to uni because everyone else is? So yeah, I started looking on sites like Not Going to Uni and UCAS. And they were really, really helpful in sort of assessing what was out there. Because I know it's been mentioned before that apprentices are kind of perceived as office hands who make teas and coffees and take notes and stuff like that. And I think there is also a perception of apprentices that you do apprenticeships, that are manual labor based. So you do an apprenticeship and become a bricklayer or a painter and decorator. And that was kind of the only thing that I had exposure to. So when I saw big companies like Unilever, Procter and Gamble, and the BBC all offering apprenticeship programs, that really, really excited me and really empowered me. And I think so far in my apprenticeship, the biggest thing that I've gained is kind of this confidence because, as I said, I wasn't someone that naturally was great with academic work. So for me, my apprenticeship has really sort of like found a fit that I'm able to work well and I'm able to excel, which I've never really had before. And so I think one of my best pieces of advice of how to excel yourself in your apprenticeship is I think most people, when they're sort of teenagers, wherever they are, have this real desire to fit in and just go unnoticed and sort of really fly under the radar. And I think you just really, really have to push that aside for your apprenticeship. There's this horrible stigma that being an overachiever or someone that really gets stuck in is like uncool or bad, and I don't understand where that came from, and it really needs to be extinguished, especially once you get into an apprenticeship situation. Yeah, and so I think as well in the ways of what social platforms you are using, we're really lucky to live in such a digital age, and I think without knowing it, you consume and you store so much information from what you see online. So my advice would be to just pick your social channels wisely. I think building a really strong LinkedIn profile is really beneficial, and I think it's a great way and a less daunting way to celebrate your success. It's very difficult to go up to someone and say, okay, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. It feels very braggy and arrogant, whereas LinkedIn gives you sort of the platform to be able to say, this is what I've done. And you get so much support from people that you might not even know yet. Like you get support from your colleagues, friends, and then because they've engaged and interacted with your post, you get sort of access to a wider pool of people that you possibly never would have met. And I think touching on that as well, how do you find things that are worth celebrating? And I think, again, we're really lucky that there are a wealth of free resources online that you can use to sort of boost your personal development and understanding. So some of my favourite courses are on the Google Digital Garage and the Open University courses. Using these tools is also a really good way to stand out in your apprenticeship because if you can sort of assess your job and find a skill that you want to get better at and upskill, it'll show that you've got a real initiative and a real like willingness to learn. And I think that oh, has it disconnected me or am I back?
You're back. We can see you. You're live. You fell off the radar for I'd say a couple of seconds.
Yeah, I could see my Wi-Fi thing bleeping at me.
So just to bring you back on to sort of, how to make, you've talked about LinkedIn, and I'm a massive advocate for LinkedIn, especially, when we run the awards, the first thing I ask every apprentice to do is make a LinkedIn profile. I know myself and Anna, who's also going to be joining us in a short while, we run a special session just to sort of tell apprentices how to create a profile and how to make the most of it. So I think let's just bring this back a second. How can apprentices actually go above and beyond within their role to excel and basically get those opportunities? As we saw Hema earlier on, she started off as an apprentice. She's now going on to do a management degree apprenticeship. How do apprentices go and get those roles?
Yeah, so I think the main thing is you've got to ask. I think you've got to just be sort of fearless with it and realize that in all likelihood your employer has invested in you as an apprentice and your development. So if you kind of turn around to them and say, well, look, I want to do this, I want to be better, they're not going to turn around to you and say, well, no, stay in your own lane. They will in all likelihood do everything that they can to sort of push you and get you to where you want to be.
Brilliant, fantastic. And I think what people need to understand is, an apprenticeship is an opportunity for you to prove to your employer what your value is, and not the other way around. It is about being proactive. it is about, if someone asks you to do something, do it to your best ability, and take every task as a personal task. So just, what sort of tools are available for apprentices to sort of upskill and become better at what they do? Are you aware of any special extra things that you can do as an apprentice?
Yeah, so I'm not sure whether that's where I dropped up. As I touched on before, the courses that Google offer are really helpful, and on the Open University as well. And I think if you ask your apprenticeship provider, the same as Tina, I'm currently with a Multiverse, formerly White Hat,
Yeah.
and they run so many great courses that are open to everyone, and they're very hard to miss. They make them
Yeah.
very obvious to us.
Brilliant, fantastic. So just before we finish, I think, what advice would you give anyone looking to do an apprenticeship right now?
I would say to know your worth, don't sort of look at these big companies and think, oh well, I couldn't work there. I think to just sort of grab the opportunities and give it a go. The worst that's going to happen is someone's going to say no.
Okay. And in terms of, trying to find the right apprenticeship for that individual, what is the best way to actually go out and look for an apprenticeship?
I think you need to sort of self-assess in a way. You need to find what you enjoy and find your best way of working, and then you can speak to sort of the National Career Hub. They're really helpful on finding your sort of fit, and there's loads of sort of quizzes and stuff online that can help you get a rough idea, and from there you can kind of work through it. But there's also like the business admin apprenticeship that me and Tina were on. That's a very vague course, and me and Tina do completely different roles. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to get you where you want to go.
Okay. And what advice would you give to, say, an apprentice who's just started? What would be your top tips for that apprentice starting a new role?
I would say just try and speak to as many people as you can, especially if that apprentice is starting from home. Say you don't get that sort of accidental interactions that you would in an office space. So I think, yeah, just try and network and speak to as many people as you can.
So how would you do that then? If if you're in lockdown, you're working from home, what's the best way to sort of reach out to people if you're not in an office environment where you can bump into people? Have you got any tips?
Yeah, so I think the likelihood for a lot of people is that you will sort of be on quite big company calls, and you can sort of pick, say, 3 or 4 people out of that call, possibly add them on LinkedIn and reach out to them there, or email them within sort of your company and say, look, I'm new, it would be great to sort of meet you and understand how your role fits into the company. And 9 times out of 10, people are more than willing to sort of speak to you.
Cool, brilliant. I can imagine it's probably very daunting for apprentices who are starting in this weird scenario of working from home and actually not having an induction where you're meeting people face to face and being sent round an office to introduce yourself to everyone. I know something, as I'm going to come back to LinkedIn. I know whenever we've had people in our organization start, the first thing I ask them to do is create a LinkedIn, go and ask every person in the office what they do in the business. So get an understanding of who's who and what they do, and how your role would actually link into what they're doing. So how your interaction with that person will come together. So I think organizational charts are always a good way to start. Finding out who, especially in large organizations like yourself, how would you go about finding out who's actually in your team, kind of thing?
Yeah, so org charts are great and super helpful. But I would say your first point of call would definitely be your line manager in that situation. They are obviously there to help you. So they will know what you need to know and be able to point you in the right direction.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Joe. Really appreciate your time today. And now we're going to hand over to Anna Morrison from Amazing Apprenticeships. Anna, are you there?
I am here. Hi, good afternoon.
Brilliant, thank you. So Anna, what are you going to be talking about today?
I am going to talk about how you can get involved in other networks and activities to meet other apprentices, raise your profile, raise the profile of your employer as well, and help to build your CV.
Brilliant. I'm just going to say I really like your sort of office setup there. There's some nice plants.
I've come into the office. I have actually come into the office, and that, I'll admit, is hiding the kettle behind it. I thought it might look a bit more professional. There you go. I'm still learning as well.
Brilliant, yeah, fantastic, Anna. I'm gonna let you take over now because you're the expert on this.
Oh, well, feel free to interrupt at any time. So hi, good afternoon, everyone. And what an inspiring session. I've been sat here like scribbling down notes. You know, I'm immersed in apprenticeships all day, every day, but you can never stop learning and hearing from people's experiences. And I think that's what I would really love to talk to you about today. So if I just start by telling you a little bit about my company. So Amazing Apprenticeships, we set up about 6 years ago now, with the main focus of working with schools to try and tackle the lack of information that was in schools around apprenticeships. So we have been really working so hard over the past few years to engage thousands of schools across the country and careers leaders, careers professionals working in the school, but also subject leads, senior leaders, to understand apprenticeship. So first of all, we had that big job of kind of saying, look, do you understand what they are and do you believe in the benefits of apprenticeships? Now, and when we got them on board with that, we then had to say, now, how can we help you to pass that message on to your students and their families? So it touches on so many of the points that have already been made today in terms of awareness, but that's us, that's kind of what we do behind the scenes. But we also do a lot of work with the employers, we work with government, we work with training providers, and that's my background. I started off my life, when I left school, I didn't want to go to university, so I got a job at an FE college working on a reception desk. And that's kind of how I got into the education world. And a lot of years later, still in it, but now with my own business. So one of the things that we work on is the Young Apprentice Ambassador Network. So the Young Apprentice Ambassador Network was established formally about 3 years ago. But before that, what we had was different groups around the country of apprentices saying, we want to share our story. We want to go into schools and tell people how amazing apprenticeships are. Now, I'm a massive advocate for this because I think the real penny drop moments for me around apprenticeships are exactly like this afternoon, when you get to meet and hear from real apprentices with their own stories and you get to kind of bring it to life. So not only are you kind of learning the theory, if you like, of what is an apprenticeship, how does it work, how do I find one, what are they? What are the different levels? All of that stuff, which you do need to understand. But I think it's the stories that make it really connected. And listening to all of the apprentices today, I'm sure you'll agree, I've got now a much more vivid kind of picture in my head of where they work, what they do, what they enjoy, the highs, the lows, the challenges, the wins, you know, all of that stuff. So through the Young Apprentice Ambassador Network, it's now a national network made up of 9 regions. And the 9 regions across the country, and each of those regions has a chair. So that chair will be an apprentice, a current or a past apprentice, who's put themselves forward and is leading that region. Now, sometimes because the regions are so huge, they will also have an executive team that will support them, and perhaps they might be broken down into separate counties. So if you imagine there's like this big picture, then you've got the 9 regions, and then you might have county-based Young Apprentice Ambassador networks within it as well. Now, I'm saying Young Apprentice Ambassador Network. The Education Skills Funding Agency are behind the Ambassador Network. And a few years ago when it was set up, they decided that they wanted to really focus on the storytelling of individuals aged 18 up to 26-ish. And that there's a big ish, because actually, if you're 27 and you've got a great story to tell, you can apply. What it was about, I suppose, why they put that age range in place was really about trying to make sure that people's stories stayed relevant to the audiences in school. And, you know, I had to accept a long time ago that I am not cool necessarily for young people to want to hear from me. But, you know, if you are in school, if you're 16, 17, and someone who's maybe aged 18, 19, 20 comes in to talk to you and tell you their story, that's really powerful. And even more powerful if they are from your local community, or even better, if they went to the school that you're attending, because they really get it and they can really talk to you about what it's like. So we are big on that. So we support the Young Apprentice Ambassador Network, and we help individuals to sign up. We handle all the applications, but then there's a training program as well. So standing up, talking in front of an audience, no matter how big or small, you know, can be quite daunting. And obviously, all of our apprentice ambassadors are presenting online digitally at the moment. So actually, that's a whole new skill set that some people have had to learn. What we do is we help you to share your story. And it's your story. So this is the best bit, you know, no one can tell you that it's right or wrong. You get to decide the bits of the story that you share and the bits that you feel, actually, I don't want to tell them that bit. And we try to really get to the bit that we know students in schools are going to be most interested in. And this is always a really interesting point, I guess, because when I speak to apprentices, they'll go, oh, yeah, but no one would actually want to know what I do in my day-to-day, or, you know, like what time I have to get up or what time I start work. And I'm like, actually, they would, because it helps you to build that picture of what it's like to be an apprentice. So you go through the training program. In normal times, it's delivered face-to-face, but it's now being delivered online, of course, and we help you to put your presentation together. And then we will connect you with one of the partners delivering on the Apprenticeship Support and Knowledge for Schools and Colleges programme. So kind of alongside the Young Apprentice Ambassador Network, there's a huge piece of work that we help to coordinate, which is where every school and college in England is entitled to free workshops delivered through the Apprenticeship Support and Knowledge for Schools and Colleges programme. We call it ASK for short, so I'm going to call it ASK from now on. So through the ASK programme, we work with schools and we make sure that they're booking in sessions for their students, for their staff, for their parents, and all of that goes onto a database, and then it feeds through to our website. And the people, the YANs who have signed up, can then go on, have a look at which events schools are saying, we want someone in to speak, and then you get connected. We never let you do it on your own. You're always supported by someone from the ASK programme. And it's hugely successful. But not only do you kind of get the opportunity to speak to students and staff and parents, we also try to really make sure that we're capturing case studies and video testimonies as well. So whether this is part of being in the YAN or just our wider work that we do through Amazing Apprenticeships, we're always really interested in hearing from people and sharing stories, because I think that's where we can make it really interesting. Now, you might prefer to write down your story, which is great. We can have written case studies, or you may prefer to record it. So you might prefer to give a presentation like this and just, you know, it only has to be a couple of minutes really, and you can talk to people about your story. Or you may prefer to do a more formal presentation, or you may prefer to do something like our apprentice Fran released this week, which was like a day in the life of, and it was really cool. And she'd like used Instagram styling, and it kind of took her through, you know, everything from waking up to finishing at the end of the day. So again, for students particularly, really useful for them to see what it's like to be an apprentice, and you know, what that day-to-day thing is like. And so we're really keen to encourage you to get involved in this. And the reason this is really good is not only is there kind of structured training through the Young Apprentice Ambassador Network, but for you to be able to say that you've been involved in events to inspire other people is really, really important. And whether it's through the Bame Apprenticeship Awards, which we sponsored this year, you know, we heard some amazing stories, and we saw those video stories coming through as well. Incredible. And also through the National Apprenticeship Awards this year. Well, they were just before Christmas, but, you know, again, we saw the power of passing on your story to inspire others. So that would be a real big plea for me. Plus, of course, it's great PR for your employer. So if your employer is looking to recruit and you are able to go out to local schools and say, I'm an apprentice with, you know, whichever company it is, and I have a great time, and this is everything my company's done for me. Oh, and by the way, they're recruiting and they're interested in people just like you, applying for jobs with companies just like them. This is how you do it. That's amazing. You know, what a great tool for your employer as well, to have someone like you going out and championing their business and making sure that individuals have heard of their company and know that they're a great employer as well. So that's another really good thing. Of course, your business, your mentor, your employer, they will be very keen to know what it is that you're going out and saying about them and how positive you're being, and how, you know, they'll really support you with that, I feel certain. So that is kind of a few bits to tell you about. The other bit to tell you about is something that has launched this week. So there is a brand new association of apprentices. The website's live. If you go on at the moment, you can sign up for free. They've put a board in place as well. So there's a number of different apprentices that you may recognise some as well. So go on and have a look. There's some amazing apprentices who have put themselves forward to be part of that board. And the Association of Apprentices is different to the Young Apprentice Ambassador Network. First of all, it's any age, so that's great. But also, it's perhaps not so much about sharing your story and being an ambassador, but it's about the support that you may need through your apprenticeship. So we've heard a lot today, haven't we, about connecting with other apprentices. And this is, you know, any of these apprenticeship networks, I'd really encourage you to get involved in, because it's brilliant to be able to come online and hopefully in the future face to face and go to events and meet other apprentices and build your social network. I'm really determined that kind of we do more in this space. I remember what it was like when I was 18 and I got my first job at the college. I was the youngest employee there easily by probably 20 or 30 years. And even if that isn't true, that's what it felt like. So even if there was someone who maybe was just 10 years older, it felt like they were so much older because it was my first job. So I think it's really important that as apprentices, you get that space to build up your professional networks. And LinkedIn is a fantastically powerful tool to be able to do that as well. I'm on LinkedIn, and Amazing Apprenticeships are as well. So feel free to come and connect with us as well. Now, what else did I want to talk to you about? Parental misconceptions. So this has come up quite a lot today as well. And I was fascinated with the conversation with the apprentices at the beginning of the session, talking about, you know, some of those misconceptions and what are we going to do to tackle them? Well, every month, Amazing Apprenticeships puts out a parents pack. And this is basically like a mini magazine, and it goes to schools. And we say to the schools, share this with your families, with your communities. And they do, they send it out on our behalf. So if you are up for it, we would love some of you to come forward and contact us about being involved in the parents pack. It's like a magazine, so we can play around with it in all sorts of different ways. It doesn't have to be a one-page case study. We could do a Q&A, we could do a debate. And I think today needs to be the starting point, doesn't it? About saying, actually, we've got a job to do here. We need to use our stories to inspire other people, to reset some of those misconceptions that might exist. Like we were just hearing about, there are so many stereotypes and misconceptions about what apprentices do. So yeah, come and get involved. Hopefully that's helpful, Kasim.
Thank you so much, Anna. That's really helpful, and really appreciate you finishing on time as well, getting us back in line with our schedule. It's been a fantastic day today. I mean, just listening to some of those stories, and I felt guilty having to cut them off. But, you know, there's been quite a few people attending the event. I hope some of you will stay for after 2 o'clock, have some networking. And we're just going to head over to our last session of the day now, which is with Dexter from the Apprentice Voice. So thank you again, Anna. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Joe. Hope you'll stay for the rest of the event, and look forward to doing some more work with you guys again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kasim.
Thank you.